As long as streaming and video podcasting has been a thing, there's been one common piece of gear that you see across a lot of these different productions, and that's the Shure SM7B. This microphone came out in 2001. A lot of the people who are using it are younger than it. The Shure SM7 came out in 1973, 8 years even before this guy was born, and it didn't get its first revision, the SM7A, until 1999. And after another 20-plus year gap, the company's finally ready to release the next step in its evolution, and that's the Shure SM7dB. So what's the big improvement that after 22 years they finally come out with a new version of this microphone? They're fixing what's probably the most common complaint amongst SM7B users, and that's the fact that it needs 60 decibels of clean gain to actually get the real sound out of it. And there are not a ton of mixers out there that are going to get them that. Most commonly, what people have to do is buy some kind of a preamp to go between the microphone and the mixer, something like a cloud lifter. But the SM7dB has said no more, and they've actually put in a Shure-designed preamp inside the microphone. First time ever for them. So the basic idea is you're supposed to get that same great sound of the SM7B without the need for an external preamp. In the box, you get this Shure sticker, documentation, a Velcro strap for cable management, the SM7dB with windsock attached, an additional puffier windsock, and a ring adapter for your mic arm. And when you take it out and hold it in your hands, you can feel the build quality right off the bat. It is a solid piece. You'll notice right away it has the same XLR connection that the regular SM7B does, and then it has a lot of options to connect this to a mic arm with the 1/4-inch thread in the middle and the larger one on the outside, plus the ring adapter that came in the box makes it flexible enough that you can get this on any mic arm, no problem. On the back of the microphone, if you're familiar with the SM7B, you'll be familiar with what this looks like. You'll see a bunch of different switches, and this one actually has 4. If you look at the switches on the top, first you're going to see the bass roll off. If you have that switch down, that's going to lower down your bass. Now that doesn't sound ideal at first, but actually what it's meant for, it's more acting in the capacity of a high pass filter. It's really to get rid of those hums and things like that. It's not to actually take the physical bass out of your voice. Unless you have like the bassiest voice in the world, in which case some of that probably is going to get cut on you. On the right, you have a presence boost, so that's actually just going to raise some of the high frequencies for you. So if you have that switch up, that's going to do that. And then if you have it switched down, it's just going to pass through normally. The 2 switches on the bottom are both related to your preamp. So the one on the right is obviously your preamp power. So that's either 18 decibel or 28 decibel. And then you have the preamp bypass. So if you switch that on, you basically turn this microphone just into the SM7B because the preamp doesn't come into play at all. But I don't know about you, I'm very eager to get this thing up on the arm and hear what it sounds like. So let's get to it. And here it is. It's all set up. It is very beautiful to actually have this thing up on my mic arm right now. It's one of those things where you've seen it on camera so many times that it's just kind of subconscious that it's something you want to see in front of your face. And that's a testament to the sound it gives, especially for podcasters. This gives you that rich sound that everybody's always looking for. Now, I'll apologize to Shure right now because this is about the weakest my voice has been in any of my videos, and that's because I've been sick for the last 2 weeks. I haven't been making any videos as a result, but it's better now, or better enough. You can at least hear how this is coming through. So, I mean, you can compare to what it sounded like with my Beacon mic, which this is it right here. I mean, they look very similar. I think that that's not an accident. Well, I know that that's not an accident, but the comparison alone should give you a really good idea of what you're actually going to get out of this microphone, because there are so many different vocal types out there. There are people who just sound like this naturally. There are people who have those beautiful velvety dulcet tones. There are people who sound like a mogwai. And a good microphone's job is to take any of those and make it sound as good as it can. So you know I have this plugged into my Rodecaster Duo right now, and the current settings, it's actually at the 28 dB preamp. The presence boost is on and the bass drop is off. But now let's mess around with that a little bit and hear what some of the other things sound like. So first thing we're going to do is the bass roll off. We're going to turn it on. And now this is what it sounds like now that I've switched that over. So you can tell me what you're hearing now that might have been different from before. And I'm going to turn that back off, and I'm actually going to turn the presence boost off. And now you've got just the flat pass through of this microphone. So now tell me what the difference is there. Are you hearing any major differences in this? I'm going to leave both of those processes off now, mainly because I want to hear what it sounds like, and I also want to see how I can manipulate it when I go into OBS and DaVinci later on. And now the last thing I want to do is I'm going to go from the 28 dB preamp, and I'm going to turn it to the 18 dB preamp without changing any other volume or anything like that, and just hear what that sounds like. Hear what kind of a drop-off there is, if there is any. Now, I have noticed I played around with the bypass earlier on. It just flat out loses all the audio of the microphone because you don't have that preamp or anything like that. So what you need in that point, you actually have to have, again, that external preamp. I don't really know why they did that. It's like they wanted to be able to offer the classic SM7B still, but that means you still have to have those external items. So you probably already have the SM7B, or the SM7B is cheap cheaper because you have all those other things already. Where this saves you the money is when you're getting it for the first time. Okay, so we're back on the 28 decibel preamp, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to take the most luxurious microphone we've had the honor of testing, and I'm going to put it through its paces with my classic test phrases. So let's give it a go. The small pup, not a hole in the sock. Okay, I'm actually sorry to cut that off, but I realized something after I did the test. The Rodecaster Duo, having all of the processing abilities and everything that it does, was actually doing a little bit of work for the microphone, and I don't want that. I want to give it a proper test. I want to make sure that nothing there is negatively affecting this mic. I want to make sure that you're hearing the actual raw audio that's coming through. So what I did, I went back in, I turned off all of the processing. We're going to do that test again. Why did I even bother admitting that I did a test and that I made a mistake? Because I'm fallible, and it's the only way we're going to learn. The small pup, not a hole in the sock. The fish twisted and turned on the bent hook. Pressed the pants and sew a button on the vest. The swan dive was far short of perfect. The beauty of the view stunned the young boy. Okay, I'm going to go give that a listen, and I'll be back with my first impressions. Okay, I listened to both of those mic tests just to make sure there wasn't any glaring difference from before I turned off the processing to after, and the good news is that there really wasn't. It's very negligible little things that like real audiophiles might have been able to pick out, but not the average person. So I love the sound of this microphone, and what I specifically like is what has made this thing such a big seller for so long is just how you sound naturally coming out of it. Without any processing, without anything, you just plug this bad boy in, and you sound like this. You sound like a broadcaster. Now, I sound a little bit more like a raspy broadcaster than the average person right now, but we're going to forgive that because, again, these things happen. Now, I heard the natural bass in this that's not too boomy, but it's very present. The high-frequency present stuff was good, too. Not too nasally in the mids, which is nice, but anybody who's ever talked about the SM7B will tell you that the best part about the microphone is the fact that it gives you a nice flat profile to actually be able to manipulate it the way you want to, what you need. It gives you a really great jumping off point, probably better than any other microphone does, but now we get the opportunity to hear a little bit of that magic. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back to that mic test. We're going to hear what it sounded like going through OBS with the usual filters that I put on, and we're going to put it through DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to do some processing in there as well. Let's hear how we can make it sound. The small pup, not a hole in the sock. The fish twisted and turned on the bent hook. Pressed the pants and sew a button on the vest. The swan dive was far short of perfect. The beauty of the view stunned the young boy. The small pup, not a hole in the sock. The fish twisted and turned on the bent hook. Pressed the pants and sew a button on the vest. The swan dive was far short of perfect. The beauty of the view stunned the young boy. The small pup, not a hole in the sock. The fish twisted and turned on the bent hook. Pressed the pants and sew a button on the vest. The swan dive was far short of perfect. The beauty of the view stunned the young boy. Now, this is the prime reason why I always turn the music off when I play these mic tests, because there are some real subtle things going on. So given the microphone's natural profile, it was really unnecessary to make any drastic changes anywhere. I didn't do anything like bring the lower high frequencies up like a considerable amount or really dip down the mids. Everything was very subtle. I brought up the low frequency about 1.5 decibels. I did about the same to the high frequencies, maybe just a teensy bit more. And then I dropped it in the middle in two places. Around 400 hertz, I dropped it about 2 decibels. And around 1.5 kilohertz, I dropped it about 3 decibels. And if you really go back and listen to those, you're going to just hear how it makes my voice pop just that much more. And I'm not talking about like the pop, like the plosives. I'm talking about that little bit of extra vibrance that you're looking for. I'm incredibly happy with this microphone, and it's really good to see that the SM7dB keeps up the same reputation as its predecessor. So the price on this microphone is $499 US. Now that's $100 more than the SM7B. But if you take into account the fact that you're not going to have to buy some kind of external preamp for this, you're actually saving money between $50 and $100 depending on what kind of cloud lifter you were going to get. And yes, there are some mixers that are able to handle the SM7B without a cloud lifter in between it, but guess what? They're very expensive too. So the SM7dB is definitely a good investment over the SM7B if you don't have those extra things already. But the question is $499 a price that you should pay for a microphone? And if you've watched videos of mine in the past or you've read articles, I've said no quite a lot. And it has nothing to do with the quality of Shure's microphones. I've always known they've been great. But this is because the majority of the people who seek out the stuff that I make are relatively speaking a lot newer. And I'm not going to tell somebody who's brand new to content creation that they should have to buy a $500 microphone to sound good. Those are the people who are not making any money doing this, so I'm not going to recommend any high-end gear to them. I'm not going to recommend expensive cameras, expensive microphones, expensive mixers, nothing.
That seems reasonable.
But all I can do is assume your budget, because if you're new to something like this, it might not be something you want to commit to, so you wouldn't want to spend a lot of money. But if you've got that money, you got a really good day job, you got some kind of inheritance, you found a treasure, then absolutely go for it. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. You apparently are doing better than I am.
Treat yourself.
But beyond deciding whether or not this microphone is a good first investment, I will tell you something for a fact. It is an excellent last investment. Just think about the SM7B. It came out at the beginning of this millennium, and for that entire time, it's been the premier dynamic microphone on the market. So I'm going to give this microphone a solid A+. Now, there's only one group of people who are not going to benefit from this microphone, and that's owners of the SM7B who already have all the accoutrement to make it work. Because it's highly unlikely that you're going to spend $499 on a microphone that does what you already have. But if you're expanding to bring more people in for a podcast or something like that, I'd go with this. Let me know what you think about the SM7dB down in the comments, and while I've got you here, and before we go, I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser. Shure didn't just send me this microphone. They sent me this microphone and something that can turn this microphone or any XLR microphone into a USB microphone. So stay tuned for that. If the video's already done, it'll pop up here somewhere. But that is it for this time. I hope everybody is happy and healthy wherever you are. Why don't you give these microphones a little peek? And until next time, my friends, let's get to work.